Welcome, Gunrunner.
The poor old 5200, the console where Atari got everything wrong, and is very much blamed for the company's downfall. With sales of just 1 million, it was vastly outsold by its predecessor, the Atari 2600, as well as its biggest rival, the ColecoVision. The chief criticism aimed at the console was its poor quality, non-centering, analog controllers, that not only broke far too easily, but were also painfully uncomfortable to hold. A lot of people weren't impressed by the lack of 2600 backwards compatibility either, and the fact it was a rehash of the Atari 400 hardware from 1979. Given its late 82 release, people were expecting something a lot better, and it remains the only Atari system not to get a worldwide release, with it being completely restricted to North America. Because of its relative lack of success, the 5200 only received 69 official games, and with a very large percentage of them being arcade ports, Atari were keen to promote it as the arcade in the home. This leaves very little room for system exclusives, which is obviously a problem for a video like this. So I had to spread my net a little wider when completing my list of 10 titles to feature. By doing that, I soon noticed that the 5200 had an awful lot of unreleased prototypes, far more than most people would probably expect, and this turned up some interesting options. So you'll find that around half the titles featured here never officially made it out the door, but they can all be purchased on cartridge and played on your 5200 thanks to the thriving repro market. All of this means that this video will be a little bit different to all my other episodes of 10 Amazing Exclusives, but perhaps a little bit more interesting for it too. And there's a good chance that many of you won't even be aware of many of these games. So let's get going and have a look at these delights then, shall we?
The most earth-shattering dig dug. The most realistic joust. Pole position at its best. Only the Atari 5200 Super System plays them. Moon Patrol with arcade graphics. Real sports baseball. You're out. Only on Super System. 2600 games, the adapter plays them all. The Atari 5200 Super System. Its only competition is you.
I wanted to start the video with this one because it's the only prototype that I wish had made it out the door more than any other. I can still remember the first time I came across Black Belt on the Amazing Atari Protos website, and I was blown away by what I saw. It was exactly the type of game the Atari 5200 needed if it was going to be a success. Sadly, it was never finished, and all we have to go on is this very incomplete work in progress. You are a karate champ sent to infiltrate a temple and defeat the evil ninja clan occupying it. As you enter each room, you are confronted by an enemy. So yes, it's the traditional one-on-one fighting game, very much in the mould of international karate and Way of the Exploding Fist. In fact, it reminded me very much of the latter in particular. Black Belt's controls are pretty intuitive and make really good use of the 5200 controller. The joystick moves your character around the room with the number keys performing different moves. The side buttons are used to change your direction. Unfortunately, the only discovered version of Black Belt is very incomplete and lacks collision detection, so the player and ninjas cannot hurt each other. This means that the game is largely unplayable and there is no way to complete a level. I know that makes this review a little bit pointless, but I really wanted to show you Black Belt because it just shows so much promise. Although the 5200 console was a failure for Atari, it did play host to a number of highly acclaimed original games. One of the most revered is Real Sports Baseball, which was very much used to help promote the so-called Super System and its superiority over the Intellivision. turning the tables on the famous George Plimpton adverts that very much promoted Mattel's machine as the place to play sports games over the 2600. It was awarded Best Sports Game of 1983 by Video Game Update and Best Sports Game of 1984 by Electronic Game Player magazine. Although Real Sports Baseball did appear on both the 5200's predecessor, the 2600, and its successor, the 7800, both versions are very different to this one, so I say it counts as an exclusive. Like many other games created for the 5200, this was due to be released on the 8-bit computers too, but Atari decided to keep it 5200 only in an attempt to improve the system's flagging sales. It didn't actually get converted over until more recent years. For the time, Real Sports Baseball is very comprehensive with its multiple difficulty modes, single and multiplayer gameplay, game options and advanced controls. The graphics are colourful and well animated, and the sound effects and music are both very good. It even features some digitised speech. I'm still not a fan of America's favourite sport, but even I managed to have some fun with this.
Strike!
This prototype wasn't released until more recent years, which is a real shame because it's great. Zari Arena can best be described as a cross between two different arcade classics, in Atari's own Breakout and Gottlieb's less well known Reactor. Interestingly, the game can also be played in a number of different configurations, on your own, against a computer, or versus another player. You control a paddle, much like the one in Breakout, which you must use to both defend your wall and attack the enemy. By holding down the fire button, you can make your bat solid to deflect fireballs back towards the enemy and the opposition wall if it's in place. In the other position, your bat can be used to catch the fireballs. You can hold up to 5 of these. If you then touch an enemy, the titular Zari, it will destroy them. However, if you don't have a fireball secured when you touch an enemy, it will temporarily stun you, leaving your wall defenceless. At the end of the round, the bricks in your wall are counted up and whoever has the most remaining wins. As the levels progress, the enemies become more aggressive and the challenge gets harder. Graphically, Zari Arena is nothing special, but more than does the job. Pretty much the same can be said for the audio too. It's a crying shame that this game never got an official release, because if it had then people would still be talking about it to this very day. There's no doubt some of you will be looking at this and thinking that game looks rather familiar. In fact, you might even be shouting, "That's Star Raiders 2" at the screen. And indeed, you would pretty much be right, but not quite. Because although it was marketed as a sequel to Doug Neubauer's original game, Star Raiders 2 actually started life as a game based on the last Starfighter movie. After the film bombed at the box office though, Atari chose to let the license run out and then later renamed the game. The original Atari 5200 version was never published, just the 8-bit computer adaptation, and there are some small and subtle differences. Enough to make this entry count, I'd say. The game is viewed through the cockpit of your Starfighter, which is armed with scanners, radar, shield, and of course laser cannons. You start off orbiting the planet trying to stop the enemy attack before flying off into the galaxy to destroy the fleets of alien ships. It's possible to repair your ship along the way by orbiting around a star and absorbing its energy. You must be careful doing this though, as your craft will heat up and if it gets too hot it'll explode. The universe here is massive and you'll spend many hours exploring its depths. The graphics in this game really are superb with an excellent impression of 3D and both fast and smooth movement throughout space. This is probably my favourite game out there for the 5200. Whilst the 2600, 7800 and 8-bit computer all got a port of the Atari arcade classic Asteroids, the 5200 didn't, which might seem strange when you realise that it was the company's most successful arcade game of all time. A couple of different prototypes were actually produced, but ultimately cancelled because they couldn't get the controls right, the 5200's strange non-centering stick. Wanting to prove Atari wrong and fill that gap, obscure third-party publisher Electra Concepts released Meteorites. As in Asteroids, you're in control of a ship that appears at the centre of the screen, which must then destroy the meteorites that appear into the space that surrounds it. There are large meteorites first, which then split into smaller meteorites as your bullets hit them. Clear the screen of all meteorites, and you start again at a new level with even more meteorites. Besides those meteorites, you have to be mindful of space sources that enter this rock-filled galaxy only to shoot back at you. In addition to your gun, you're also equipped with a hyperspace jump that quickly moves your ship to a random spot in space. Unfortunately, since you don't know where you'll appear, you may find yourself in more trouble than the spot you were on before the jump. Okay, so Meteorites is just Asteroids, with absolutely nothing to distinguish it from its inspiration. However, it is a genuine, if very rare, Atari 5200 exclusive. Starring all your favourite characters from the Looney Tunes cartoons, this game is not only one of a handful of unreleased prototypes on this list, it's also one of several titles that were supposed to form part of the Atari 5200's cancelled kids range too. Looney Tunes Hotel sees you take on the role of everyone's favourite cartoon rabbit, Bugs, as he is chased around a crazy hotel by numerous foes. The actual idea of the game is pretty simple really, to make your way around each single screen level trying to close all the doors. You do this by using a series of lifts, some of which just go up and some of which just go down, to get to the appropriate platforms so you can complete your task. You must also avoid those aforementioned foes who are out to stop you, and all of this is done against a strict time limit. The sleepwalking Elmer Fudd can reopen doors and also knock you off platforms if you come into contact with him, costing you valuable time. Taz pounces on you from random doors, reopening them in the process, and again costs you valuable time. Yosemite Sam has to be the most annoying of all though, as he struts around chucking bombs at you. As the levels go on, you have more doors, more aggressive enemies, and less time to finish your task. The graphics aren't anything special in Looney Tunes Hotel, but the audio is quite nice, especially the music, and the game is a lot of fun to play. Evil terrorists hell-bent on world destruction have seized control of America's key missile silos and are planning on launching nukes to blow up Washington DC and other major cities. Your job, as you no doubt already guessed, is to stop them. In the usual one-man army scenario, why does nobody ever help? You must drive your tank across a varied scrolling terrain. When you finally encounter a silo, you have two options: destroy all the missiles as they launch, or attempt to guess the fail-safe code. If you try to destroy all the missiles, you must do so in under 10 minutes, and this is made even more difficult by the enemy defences that include pillboxes, tanks, jeeps and rockets that are all capable of destroying your vehicle. Clues to help you disarm all the silos using the fail-safe codes can be found by docking at supply depots. Should you choose to take this more covert approach, each code is 3 letters long and consists of any combination of L, E and O. Once you choose this option, you enter a war room where you have a very short time to enter the code correctly, or the missiles will launch and seal your fate. Once all the missiles have been stopped by either means, the level is complete and you move into the next, where it's the same thing again, only more difficult. It might not look like anything special, but Countermeasure is exactly the quality of exclusive the 5200 needed much more of. Those of you who frequented arcades in 1982 may remember Konami's Locomotion, which was one of the first examples of a coin-op puzzler. The game turned out to be a bit of a sleeper hit, so Atari tried to obtain the rights to it, only to be outdone by their great rivals Mattel. This wouldn't have been such a problem if they hadn't already started work on a port for the 5200. Rather than dump all their hard work though, Atari came up with a solution, by changing it into a game based on the popular Warner Brothers cartoon Roadrunner. Remember, Warner owned Atari at this time, so it was an easy license to obtain. This was a couple of years before the Atari game's coin-op based on the same franchise, remember. The game plays a lot like one of those sliding puzzle games you played as a kid, where you had to keep shifting the plastic pieces around to make up the picture. Like that game, there is just one empty square, so moving around the pieces and getting them in the right places is far from easy. Rather than building a picture or keeping a train on the track like Locomotion, in this one you are trying to guide either Roadrunner or his great rival Wile E. Coyote around the roads eating all the birdseed. Keep sliding the pieces to keep moving, use the tunnels to get to the other side, and keep your rival away from you. This proto isn't quite finished, it has no audio sadly, but it's still rather fun. Like Real Sports Baseball, which I looked at earlier in this video, Real Sports Soccer is another game that also appeared on the 2600, but in a very different form. In fact, in this case, the differences are even starker. They really are completely different games. The title we saw on the 2600 was based on the indoor 5-a-side version of the world's favourite sport, whilst this 5200 iteration recreates the true 11-a-side outdoor experience. We have 4 skill levels, the option to choose your game length from 5 minutes per half up to a truly realistic 45 minutes each way, 1 and 2 player games, and a full set of rules. To get around the sprite limits for the system, you only see 4 of your players on screen at once, but it's still possible to play a proper passing game. Your players can also shoot and tackle, with the latter causing free kicks and penalties if not timed properly. It's easy to see which player you are controlling as they colour the shirt in lighter, and there is full pitch markings too, including little corner flags. So far so good, but there are a couple of small issues, mainly the fact that the goalkeepers are absolutely terrible and a lack of different skills. You can only kick the ball one way. The graphics are pretty decent, the sound effects and music are excellent, and the controls are also responsive. As the only footy game on the 5200, Real Sports Soccer becomes a must-have title for all you sports fans. When Atari signed a deal with Disney to license all their hottest properties, people rightly expected the cash to come rolling in. But unfortunately for both companies, the agreement came about just before the video game crash kicked in, and the vast majority of Atari's Disney-based games never even made it out the door. One such casualty was Sport Goofy for the 5200, which is loosely based on the specific Goofy episode of the same name. The game itself consists of two separate events, the Marathon Dive and the Pogo Pop. In the first of these, you must guide the ugly cartoon dog up a series of platforms so you can reach the diving platform and jump off before the timer runs out. As Goofy climbs up the platforms, you must avoid the armoured tanks. What they're doing there I don't know, or guide them into holes to get rid of them. Once you make your leap, you must try to guide Goofy safely onto the floating platform in the water below. The second event is very much inspired by Q*bert, as Goofy bounces around the 3D tiles on his pogo stick, trying to touch every one. The big difference is from the classic arcade game is that the squares vanish once you land on them, meaning you need to plan your next move very carefully. Balloons floating above can be popped for extra bonus points. Sport Goofy has attractive graphics, good sound effects, and some pretty unique gameplay.
This is an arcade game. This is the new Atari Super System. Arcade, Atari Super System. You may like the Super System better. It has some of the best arcade and sports games and plays every Atari cartridge. It even does something no arcade game can.
Telephone! It's Judy!
It lets you freeze the action.
Hello, Judy.
The new 5200 Super System.
And that rounds up my look at the 10 amazing exclusives for the Atari 5200 Super System. Can you think of any other one-off titles for Atari's misunderstood console that should have made the list? Or do you think some of these games were unworthy of inclusion? We always love to hear the thoughts and views from my audience, so please get typing in that comments section. Before I go though, I must thank all of my all patrons and YouTube backers for continuing to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to the following patrons in particular for their much appreciated pledges: D. Vaughan, Mitchell Valentino, Neptune, Seth A. Robinson, Carl Olsen, Ozzy B, Dos Gamerman, Grady Haynes, Paul Daniel, S-Mania999, Retro Resolution, and Electron Star Collapse. If you also want to help support all my creative endeavours, including this YouTube channel, then please go check out my Patreon right now. You can get access to host retro content, including downloads, exclusive videos, creative insights, and much more besides. I've been the Laird, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.